Hey everyone, I am here with a true story. This is from our book, When God Winks at You. This story is called God Calling. The kitchen floor was littered with ripped open cereal boxes, a dirty shirt, wadded newspaper, a spilled can of coffee. It was a mess. In the middle of it all sprawled Ron Latour, sobbing uncontrollably. His life was a mess. Unbathed for days, matted hair swinging annoyingly in front of his eyes, Ron struggled to release an ice cube from a frozen tray. "Damn you," he cried, banging it on the floor. Since his girlfriend Donna suddenly left him, the singing words, "I'm fed up with you, your job and everything about you," ringing in his ears. He seemed to be drawn into a downward spiral whirlpool. The breakup was all his fault, and now he was certain he really loved her and should have told her so. Damn you. His self-esteem had never been lower. He was worthless. He was of no use to anyone, and nobody cared. Snap! An ice cube broke from the pack. He watched his skin redden as he roughly scraped the ice cube across his wrist. It would deepen the pain. The knife would deaden him. Ugh! A guttural, desperate, primeval sound erupted from his depths as he lifted the knife. "He was the sweetest guy you'd ever want to meet," said producer Brian Hiscock to his wife Joanne, describing the events that had taken place on the set of the production he'd just completed. "Ron Latour is one of the best PDs in the business." He continued, recounting the erratic behavior of his director of photography, "but I'm worried about him." He described how he had to pull Ron aside to talk to him about his uncharacteristic tardiness and his outbursts during the filming. Quietly pausing, Brian pictured his last conversation with him. Ron was a mess. He'd said in a fatherly manner. Ron hung his head, nodding in agreement. "I've got a friend you should talk to. Larry Poland. He might help you out." Dr. Larry Poland, founder of Master Media Ministries, was a friend and counselor to many who worked in television and film industry. Joanne interrupted his thoughts with an observation. "Sounds like we really got hit hard when Donna walked out on him," she said thoughtfully. Brian nodded. She had a hard time handling Ron's busy travel schedule. Sadly shaking his head, he added, "He's really depressed." "Why don't we invite him to dinner?" offered Joanne softly. Brian looked at her. It was a highly uncharacteristic remark. Joanne did not normally invite someone from one of Brian's productions to their home. Certainly she was a gracious hostess. They would often dine out with colleagues or even have an occasional dinner party, but inviting one of the staff to dinner? That was different. "Good idea," said Brian, going to the phone. There was no answer. Joanne continued to think about Ron. Something was really pressing on her mind, that they should reach out to him. "I'm going to try him again," she said after a while. "Quiet!" screamed Ron, once more swiping the ice over his wrist. Through the maelstrom of eternal and external screams broke an aggravating noise. "Ring! Ring! Quiet!" The blade wavered above his wrist. He paused. "Hello?" "Hi, Ron. This is Joanne Hickok. Brian and I were hoping you could join us for dinner tonight at our house." He was at a loss for words. "Can you make it?" Yeah, I guess so." Brian greeted Ron at the door, and before sitting down to dinner, he gave his director of photography a little tour of their home. commenting upon the reliance of particular artwork and giving brief descriptions of how he had acquired them. In the hallway hung an oil painting by an artist that Brian knew personally. It was an unusual depiction of Jesus smiling. Ron stared at the painting. He felt strange. These nice people inviting him into their home, making him feel important, appreciated, and now looking at the image of Christ smiling at him. He felt a sudden constriction in his throat. Tears welled up. He couldn't help it. He wept. Placing an arm on Ron's shoulder, Brian sensed he was witnessing the start of a transformation, one that needed Larry Poland's help to complete. 2 days later, over breakfast with Larry at the Denny's restaurant, Ron committed his life to the Lord. Only later did Brian Hickok learn that Joanne's telephone call was a God wink, just in time. What are the odds that you would call Ron at the exact moment? Brian pondered aloud to Joanne. Wasn't it incredible how God nudged you into inviting him to dinner? Ron Latour looks back on that evening with thankfulness. He stood on the precipice of his own demise, convinced that no one cared about him. But the unbelievable timing of the call from Joanne Hickok, God winking at him just in time to save his life, opened his conscience to understanding that he was never alone, that Jesus was always smiling upon him. Since that day, Ron uses that extraordinary experience, that life-saving God wink story, to witness to others. He tells how God's wink at him just in time, just in the moment he most needed it. He tells it to the people who need to hear it the most. Here is a test to find whether your mission on earth is finished. If you are alive, it isn't. Richard Bach. Good night, guys.